WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
Well, the questions keep coming in, Dennis, and I don't think there's going to ever be a shortage of interest in this idea of entrepreneurship and starting your own business. I get asked this all the time. I know you do too, Dennis, but when it comes to actually getting some of these questions answered, this is good stuff. You should be asking questions. You should be thinking about what you need to be putting into your business and all the elements. But I know people are going to continuously be asking these questions. So it's time we tackle this again. So I know that this is an ongoing series that we're going to tackle, right?
You bet. And so these are some questions that have come in from different people over the last few weeks. And so one of them just starts out, hey, I'm really good at sales. Does that mean that I could be a good business owner?
You know, I think that it really, there's a lot to that question, isn't there, Dennis? I mean, sure.
There is.
If you're a great salesperson and maybe you're at the top of your game, you're doing well, does that mean does that translate into entrepreneurial success? The outward answer I'm going to tell you is no, right? There's a lot of things you got to really take a look at. It certainly is a huge factor in making you successful because candidly, that's where I came from. I came from the world of sales. My background has been in kind of refining that, but I can tell you as owning your own business, there's a lot more that you think about. In a previous podcast, we had talked about solopreneurship, meaning a sole business owner with no partners. And if that's going to be your goal, you certainly can be successful. And there are other elements that come into play. If you're from, say, a large sales organization, the things that you don't think about, I know in instances in the world I came from, I had sales engineers, I had product managers, I had support staff. I had a manager who could help coach me and guide me. I certainly had collateral materials, and in some cases, I had multi-billion-dollar companies backing me every step of the way. When you're doing this on your own, and even though you have part of that equation, part of it is you really need to look at the whole of who it is that you're going to be selling to, what it is it takes to be successful, and support and all that. So having said that, yes, you can be successful. You have, I think, if you are successful in sales, that's a really good part of the equation that you've tackled, but it's not the only thing. How about you, Dennis?
And I think also as you look at it, because the question goes on further, hey, will I make more money as a salesperson or a business owner? Lots of variables there too, because
sure.
If you're working with a company that pays the salespeople well through a commission structure, as a salesperson, you couldn't ask for anything better because you control what you can make based on how you run with it. If it's one where it's base salary, you don't make a lot of commission, there might be some ifs there.
Right. On
the business side, the risk is if it fails, you fail completely and you're out. So there's some, and also sales, I always tell all my team members, everybody's a salesperson. But again, if you've got a product and you've got to have other people doing stuff, you're dependent on other people for your success, even in a solopreneurship and that kind of thing. So pros and cons both ways. If it's all about the money, honestly, if you're with the right organization and you've got the right management, you can probably make more money as a salesperson than you can as a business owner, unless you've got some really neat business idea that is unique and different and is going to allow you to springboard and do things. If you're looking more for that solopreneur and ownership thing, and you want to, have even a little bit more flexibility in your life, then the business owner model might be the way to go. Not in the initial years, but as the business evolves, you can probably have a little bit more quality time and you're in control of your life. So pros and cons both ways. I'd say it really depends on your personal situation.
Yeah. And let me add more to what Dennis is saying and what I'm going to say too as well. In terms of sales, you're kind of in a unique position where, in this world today, we talk about side hustles and being able to kind of start another business on the side as you're working a full-time job and being able to support yourself fully because you're working for a corporation. I think salespeople have a unique perspective, Dennis, in that they're talking to, let's say, especially if you're going into a field that's maybe related. If you're selling B2B and the business that you're going to be starting or looking into is maybe in a related field and you're talking to the same folks, you absolutely can potentially take advantage of that. And whether that be giving it to another company and having them do the sale and you're referring it and you're getting referral commissions on that, or if, as long as it's not in conflict with what you're doing, and you certainly don't want to do anything that's going to run afoul with your existing company, right? If you're in there selling SaaS services and the company you're looking at trying to sell is a SaaS company too, no, do not do that. But if what you're doing is you're selling telephone services today with a company and you want to go and you want to sell hardware, as an example, there's no overlap there. That's something that you can potentially take advantage of, just to be very careful with it.
Yeah. So I just kind of look at it from, and look at each situation is a little different. Definitely to Benny's point, follow the guidelines. Whoever you're working for first, be loyal to them. And
absolutely.
And then if they were supportive of that concept, and be honest with them, let them know what you're doing, because it's going to come back. They're going to find out about it one way or the other. And I'd encourage you to tell them on the front end. So, okay. Question number 2, let's go with this one. They want to know if I'm, we got a lot today about starting new businesses. So if I'm starting from scratch and I've only got $10,000, can I make it? That's a tough one.
That's a loaded question, actually, Dennis.
That's a loaded question. So if all you got is $10,000 and you're by yourself and you got a great plan, maybe. I would say I personally believe you need to have at least 2 years worth of salary. It doesn't have to be what you were making before, but enough to live off of for 2 years just for yourself. And if you have a family, it even adds more complexity to it.
I'm going to take the standpoint, because it wasn't clear from the question that the listener sent in here. If you have $10,000 and you want to start a business and you are working at a company right now, but you have that, you have that buffer. If you're going to go all in to, like Dennis's point, yeah, absolutely. You need to make sure that your bills are going to be paid for the next couple of years. But if you're, say, able to, maybe you're young and you're still living at home, or you have a spouse that actually is working, or you can still work at your job and do this in the evening and start that. Yeah, I mean, it all really depends. Can you start? Listen, businesses have been start with literally $0, right? You start a consulting company and you're just offering your services because you have a skill that people are willing to pay for. You can start that business with no money. But if you're going out there and you actually have to buy raw materials and product and other, you have to get contracts with vendors. Yeah, you have to take a look at the entire picture. So again, loaded question. It just all depends. And I think it just depends on your individual situation.
Yeah. And to Benny's point, I mean, if it's something where you can work either a full-time job or a part-time job, and then you're doing this kind of on the side to kind of get started, definitely a possibility. It all, again, it all depends on your business plan, what the product or service that you're going to provide, and what's the appetite for the consumer to buy it. The startup cost of a business is not a lot. I mean, I know, like with mine, I think that we incorporated in the state of Delaware, and that was only like $200 or $300, and a little bit of an attorney to help write up some stuff. So it's not real expensive to start, but there are other costs that come along, and then you've got to make sure you've got revenue coming at some point to cover that.
Yeah, we have listeners all over the world. Dennis has pointed out to me, and so depending upon your local country and your area, take a look and see what requirements are. They're actually, Dennis, too, as well, just is something to think about, too. Depending upon if you're like going to sell to the government or if you have a specific need that's a requirement that's being looked at, there are grants and there are other services that they're going to encourage certain types of companies to go into business. And I'll tell you, when I started a business, it was a frozen yogurt store way back in 2011. We actually were able and eligible to get a couple $1,000 grant. Obviously that was going to pay just a few bills, but it was nice to be able to have a couple $1,000 because we were opening up a business in this particular city. So there's a lot of different ways. I'm going to say that $10,000, absolutely yes. And then $10,000, absolutely maybe.
Well, and also, look at the SBA loans. So there are things that, the government helps,
Mm-hmm.
and banks are classified as SBA lenders. Certain ones are.
Mm-hmm.
That means the interest rate's going to be a little bit lower. Your requirements to get the loans are less. So there's things you can do. But again, you've got to have a good business plan and a model. They're not just handing you money because you got an idea.
Right.
But again, there's ways to navigate that. Because again, you may need to have some working capital, depends on what you're doing, that 10,000 may not be enough to get you through. So it just depends on where you're going. There's lots of variables on that one. Hey, let's go to number 3. So number 3 question, what are some hard lessons we've had to learn from starting business?
Wow.
The biggest one I'd say is you want to trust everybody, but it's important to put things in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you hear and what someone says sometimes can be misconstrued. And if things are going great, not a big deal. But if there's an issue, you need to go back to that document to say, here's what we both agreed to and signed off on. And this applies not only to owning your own business. This is if you're in the business world as a whole, documentation is important. And I think most people don't do a great job of documentation.
Yeah. And this actually is something that I talked about to an audience that I gave a talk to just the other day. And we all attend meetings, whether they be on Microsoft Teams or Zoom and whatnot. If you have the ability now with especially these AI tools, not only to record the meeting, but they can be transcribed, and it's easy to search through transcription. You can actually ask AI what was talked about in a particular meeting. But those type of things are invaluable in terms of just making sure if someone made a commitment to you to say they were going to do something, it's all documented, it's recorded, you have it for posterity, you have it there. And we all can agree that those recordings are going to be important for you. So yeah, make sure you cover yourself up here. We talked about in a previous episode about solopreneurship and partners. I mean, to Dennis's point, I really think that it's a really good idea. You make sure you got the lay of the land. Everybody understands there's roles, who's in charge. And by the way, I don't think we did mention that there should be a specific leadership structure. Who is the CEO? You don't want to have 5 people saying that they're co-CEO. None of that nonsense, right? That's ridiculous.
The mergers of equals, there's no such thing. I was in a bank that merged. No. It's whoever has 51% in charge. I don't care what that was. So, or whoever has the biggest number. The other one I would say is, especially this is from a sales perspective, salespeople love to get excited about, oh, we're going to close this deal and we're going to close this deal. A lot of times their anxiety and excitement is over exaggerated. And unfortunately, businesses then make decisions without the deal closing. Mm-hmm. I encourage you, don't make commitments or do anything until you actually have a signed again, we're going back to signed documents, a signed document that is legal that says, hey, I've committed to do whatever it is that we need you to do, and we're going to pay you. Because if they don't agree and you just signed up for a lease or to buy raw materials to do something and they walk, you're out that money. So, don't get sucked into being, oh yeah, they're going to sign, because again, the customer's timeline sometimes isn't always the same as your timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic advice. And I document. That's the lesson here.
That's the biggest one I'd say from hard lessons is, while you want to trust everybody, it's just good, smart tracking and documentation of things back and forth. Just come back to help you so much more in the end and make life a lot easier.
What's that old adage, Dennis? Trust but verify?
That would be a good one.
Yep.
Benny, any other ones on that topic? We got one more question that we'll wrap up here.
No, I think that's good.
All right. The last question, this comes back more to my old days on the purchasing side. It says, hey, I've started a business and I'm trying to figure out, how do I negotiate with suppliers and vendors, and what are things that I should do or not do? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know for me, and really, I do deal with a number of different vendors, and especially when we had the yogurt store, we had to look at different suppliers. For me, there's a lot of in terms of reputation. You want to understand, how are if they're suppliers, and in like in the restaurant world, they supply to lots of different restaurants, and you want to see what's that reputation, what do people say about them. I'm also curious, Dennis, in terms of like terms. If are we net 30? Is there a discount for paying up? Right? Before 30, can we get some things financed? Are there elements of here where you don't have to fulfill this agreement and that you didn't know about? The fine print is always going to be important there. I know, Dennis, this is your background, and
This is
you
my
have
background.
a lot of experience in this.
And so I used to be VP of purchasing, and a lot of it, it's about relationships because again, you're buying products, but you're buying goods or services from people. And so do you like the person and do you trust the person? Let's be honest, Benny was a vendor to me and we've stayed friends for 20 years, because we could have honest conversations when I was the buyer and he was the seller of what was going on, and we trusted each other. And as the buyer, don't take advantage of them. Be honest and be upfront, because nobody wants to sell to somebody that's a jerk.
Yep.
And if all you're trying to do is get the lowest price, we'll get you the lowest price. I didn't say it was going to work well, but I can get you a really low price. But the goal is look at total cost. And so, what's the cost of inventory? What's the cost of freight? Do they provide research and development to help you do stuff? Do they help you and not nickel and dime you after you get going? Sometimes you don't know that. You can hear it from references. You develop relationships, and just get to know and where they're at and what they do, and they're established with to Benny's point, that reputation of what they provide, and then be honest with them. If you told them you were going to buy 1 million widgets and you've only bought 300,000, share with them what's going on. They should be engaged to try to help you sell more stuff because it helps them sell more stuff. But they've got a pipeline back the other way that they're expecting that 1 million to go through. And if all of a sudden you're not going to pull it, it impacts them. So have good conversations with both the people and think of them almost as an extension of your organization.
Yes.
And someone that you want to trust and have as a trusted advisor, and ask them their advice. Sometimes they can share some things, war stories, to help you avoid problems, because they're selling in many cases maybe to your competitor, or at least like industries that do things that you do, but maybe don't directly compete with, that they can share concepts or ways to avoid. And if you put it that perspective, it'll make the relationship a lot better. If you go in there with the mindset that I'm going to beat the shit out of them, they'll sell to you once, they won't be back again. And so you'll be constantly looking for other suppliers.
And your reputation gets out in the industry. Believe me, if you're working with a supplier in a small industry or even a big industry, people know about you and they talk about you. Absolutely. So
the other thing I would, consider, especially when I worked at a large company, I think of it as a baseball analogy. I had a major league supplier, but then I also had a minor league, and I had an entry level person that was, because we had enough that I needed 3 or 4 suppliers to do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the major league one, he probably had 70 or 80% of the business, and then the other 2 split the other 30% in some form or fashion. But it helped me keep everybody honest. And also sometimes that new guy gets aggressive or has ideas to help push the other ones, or comes up with something unique or different and a way to kind of streamline. So I think don't always lock yourself into just one supplier, especially if you think back 2 years ago when supply chains were a problem. That can get you kind of hosed. That if you can spread your business around and buy from a couple, it's never a bad thing, because then you can kind of see who you like and where they're at. And it's okay to change out one every once in a while.
Yeah. And your suppliers actually can help you through rough patches, because and Dennis and I will attest to, you will go through rough patches. You'll have fantastic days and months and weeks and years, and you might have a rough patch, and those suppliers might be able to help you out. And if you've treated them well, they're going to help you out. If you've treated them like crap, probably not. Dennis, this is always an ongoing. I really enjoy this conversation, and please, you all send all their questions into us and let us know how we can answer anything for you. Dennis, how can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you a question?
I'd say for questions, especially like things that we're having conversations here, just ping us at our website, wfhwith2guys.com. And you can put a note there or through LinkedIn, I think is a good way, because that comes to Benny and I both. Mm-hmm. And then we can gather these questions, and periodically we'll just pull this together and have a podcast about questions, and hopefully share some answers. Sometimes from these questions, we'll find guests that can come in and speak more deeper about some of these different ones. Benny, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, you stop by our website. Find us on LinkedIn too as well. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Connect with us. We're always looking to find some of the folks out there. We've gotten lots of connections over the years, and we welcome that. So continue to throw us the questions. Let us know what we can do to help out. But we're here for you guys. We're going to keep going. So thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.